Step aside. First class is not for people who wander up here hoping nobody checks. Brittany Hale's voice cracked across the Beacon Class gate lounge sharp enough to cut through the soft piano music overhead. Every head turned. The boarding scanner beeped somewhere behind her. A businessman lowered his champagne glass halfway to his mouth. A child stopped spinning beside a leather suitcase. "Ma'am," the woman in the wool coat said quietly, "my boarding pass is valid." "A paper ticket?" Brittany laughed without warmth. "Seriously? You expect me to believe Beacon handed this to you?" The black woman standing at the gate did not move. Her fingers tightened slightly around a folded ticket. Dark wool coat. Worn sleeves. No designer luggage. No jewelry except a thin gold wedding band dulled with age and use. Brittany looked her up and down slowly, making sure the people nearby saw it too. People like you do not just stroll into Beacon Class because you found a coat and learned how to speak confidently. A few passengers exchanged uncomfortable looks. Nobody stepped in. The woman's voice remained calm. "Please scan the ticket." "No," Brittany folded her arms. Her bright red nails tapped against her uniform sleeve. First-class passengers do not beg to be let in. They belong here naturally. The woman looked directly at her. Steady eyes. No fear. No anger. Just exhaustion held together by dignity. "My name is on the reservation." Brittany smirked. "Then say it louder. Maybe the computer will magically believe you." A young attendant beside the boarding scanner shifted uneasily. Maya Collins. 23 years old. New hire. She glanced at the paper ticket once and immediately looked pale. "Brittany," she whispered carefully, "maybe we should just scan, I know my job." Brittany snapped the words hard enough to make Maya recoil. Then she smiled again for the crowd. A polished smile. The kind people practiced in luxury service training videos. Beacon Class is for premium members only. CEOs. Investors. Diplomats. People who actually belong here. The woman swallowed once. "I am boarding row 2. "Of course you are." Brittany leaned closer. "And I am the Queen of England." A few people laughed quietly. One man lifted his phone slightly. "Recording now." The woman noticed. She noticed everything. The polished marble floors. The gold trim around the Beacon logo. The reflection of herself in the glass wall beside the runway. She also noticed the old janitor near the far hallway staring at her coat with confusion in his eyes. Like he recognized it from somewhere. Then he quickly looked away. Have you ever watched a room decide who deserves respect before hearing a single word from them? Brittany held out her hand sharply. "Ticket." The woman hesitated only a second before handing it over. Maya's stomach visibly tightened. The paper itself looked different from normal boarding passes. Thick ivory stock. Embossed silver lettering. The old Beacon logo pressed faintly into the corner. Brittany barely glanced at it. "This is fake." "It is not. You printed this at home?" Brittany laughed again, louder this time. "Wow. That is actually embarrassing. Please scan it. You are becoming very demanding for someone seconds away from being escorted out." Two airport security officers near the lounge entrance turned their heads at the word escorted. The businessman with the champagne leaned back in his chair, interested now. Somebody whispered, "What is happening?" Brittany's eyes narrowed. "You know what the problem is," she said. "People think confidence can replace class." The woman answered softly. "Class is how you treat people when you believe they cannot fight back." The sentence hit the air strangely. Quiet but heavy. Brittany's smile flickered for half a second. Then returned colder than before. "Oh, so now you want to lecture me?" Maya stepped closer again, lowering her voice. "Brittany, the serial code on that ticket, enough. Brittany snatched the ticket fully from her hand. I am done playing games. The woman's hand remained suspended in the air a moment after the ticket disappeared. Long fingers. Barely trembling now. Ma'am, Maya tried again, there is a founder insignia on, founder. Brittany scoffed loudly. Please. Next she will tell us she owns the airline. More laughter. This time easier. Crueler. The woman looked down briefly at the wool sleeve near her wrist. The stitching there had been repaired by hand years ago. Tiny careful threadwork almost invisible unless someone knew where to look. Her thumb brushed over it once. Then Brittany tore the ticket straight down the middle. Gasps cracked through the lounge. The sound of ripping paper seemed louder than the boarding announcements overhead. Brittany did not stop there. She tore it again. And again. 4 pieces floated slowly onto the polished floor between them. Maya went white. Oh my God, one of the security officers immediately started walking over. The businessman lowered his phone slightly, whispering, "She is done." Brittany smiled triumphantly. There. Problem solved. The woman stared at the pieces on the ground. Nobody moved. Nobody bent down to help her. Even the piano music overhead suddenly felt too loud against the silence. Brittany tilted her head. Now either leave quietly or security will remove you from the lounge. The woman finally looked up again. Calm. Too calm. That was the first moment Maya Collins felt fear instead of pity. Because people who are powerless usually panic by now. This woman did not. She reached slowly into the pocket of her wool coat. Brittany rolled her eyes immediately. What now? The woman pulled out a phone. Old black case. No shaking hands. No tears. Just one precise movement after another. She pressed a number from memory. Maya noticed something then. The nearest flight captain walking through the jetway froze the instant he saw the woman's face. Not recognition exactly. Something deeper. Like realization arriving too late. The woman lifted the phone to her ear. This is Tatum Lockwood. Brittany snorted softly. Sure it is. Tatum's eyes never left hers. Ground every beacon aircraft on the East Coast. Silence. Real silence this time. The kind that arrives 1 second before everything changes. Then somewhere beyond the gate windows a departing beacon jet suddenly stopped moving. The beacon jet outside the glass wall sat frozen on the runway. Engines humming. Lights blinking against the gray afternoon sky. Nobody in the lounge moved for almost 3 full seconds. Then the whispers started. Who is that? Did she just stop a plane? No way. Brittany Hale laughed too loudly. Too fast. Okay, enough. Her smile looked thinner now. You think making fake phone calls is supposed to scare somebody? Tatum Lockwood slipped the phone back into the pocket of her wool coat. Calm. Controlled. But her hand trembled once before disappearing into the fabric. Only Maya Collins noticed. The torn pieces of the boarding pass still lay scattered across the marble floor between them. One piece had landed upside down. The old silver beacon insignia caught the lounge lighting for just a second before a businessman's shoe slid over it. Security finally approached the gate. Ma'am, one officer said carefully to Tatum, we are going to need you to step away from the boarding lane. Tatum nodded once. No argument. No raised voice. Just quiet dignity while half the room stared at her like she was either dangerous or crazy. Sometimes people decide which one you are before they decide whether you are human. Brittany folded her arms tighter. Thank you. Finally. Maya bent down quickly and picked up one torn corner of the ticket before anyone else stepped on it. Her eyes widened slightly again when she saw the faded silver imprint beneath the barcode. Founder line authorization. She looked up toward Tatum instinctively, but Brittany cut across immediately. Maya. Leave it. But this ticket, I said leave it. Maya swallowed hard and tucked the torn piece quietly into her sleeve instead. Tatum noticed. She said nothing. The lounge doors opened automatically with a soft hiss as security escorted Tatum toward the hallway outside Beacon Class. Phones followed her. Cameras still recording. A woman near the espresso station shook her head slowly. People will do anything for attention now. Tatum kept walking. Her shoes clicked softly against polished tile. The same steady rhythm. One step after another. As if humiliation was something she had practiced surviving a long time ago. 3 hours earlier, the morning had been silent inside her apartment overlooking the Hudson River. Not flashy. Not enormous. Just old money wrapped in quiet taste. Dark bookshelves. Fresh coffee. A framed black and white photograph resting beside the kitchen window. Isaiah Lockwood standing beside a tiny propeller plane in 1948 wearing a Tuskegee Airman uniform and smiling into the wind. Tatum had stood in front of that photo longer than usual that morning. Her fingers brushing lightly against the frame. You built this place so people like us would never have to beg for dignity again, she whispered softly. Beside the photograph sat the wool coat. Dark charcoal. Slightly faded at the cuffs. Hand-stitched repairs near the wrist. Her mother's coat. Marion Lockwood used to wear it to Beacon terminals during the early years when passengers still stared at black families walking through first-class lounges like they did not belong there. Tatum remembered her mother standing tall anyway. Chin up. Quiet. Unbreakable. That coat had seen funerals. Board meetings. Airport strikes. Hospital waiting rooms. And one terrible night 10 years ago when Tatum stood alone under fluorescent lights listening to a doctor explain why her father would never wake up again. She picked up the coat slowly that morning like lifting memory itself. The housekeeper had frowned gently. Miss Lockwood, maybe wear the navy suit instead. Tatum smiled faintly. If respect only survives expensive fabric, then Beacon has already forgotten who we are. Back in the airport hallway, her phone buzzed once. Unknown number. Then again. Then again. Operations. Board members. Legal. She ignored every call. Security stopped beside a private waiting corridor away from the crowd. One officer shifted awkwardly. Ma'am, if there has been some misunderstanding, maybe we can clear this up quietly. Brittany appeared behind them almost immediately before Tatum could answer. There is no misunderstanding. She disrupted boarding operations and threatened the airline. Threatened? Tatum asked softly. Brittany smirked again, but the confidence no longer sat naturally on her face. Nobody grounds Beacon flights with one phone call. Then somewhere deeper inside the terminal, alarms suddenly echoed once. Short. Sharp. A gate agent sprinted across the far corridor holding a headset against his ear. Another agent behind him looked panicked. Overhead screens flickered. Delayed. 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 Maya stepped out from the lounge entrance gripping the torn piece of ticket in her hand. Her face had gone completely pale now. Brittany, she whispered. The system, Brittany turned sharply. What? Maya looked toward Tatum. Then toward the overhead operations monitor now flashing a line of red text across the terminal network. Authorization confirmed, Lockwood Priority Directive active. Brittany's smile disappeared for the first time. Authorization confirmed, Lockwood Priority Directive active. The red letters stretched across every operations screen in Terminal 4 like a warning flare. Gate agent stopped talking mid-sentence. A baggage supervisor nearly dropped his radio. Brittany Hale stared at the monitor, then laughed once under her breath. Thin. Nervous. That means nothing, she snapped. Anybody can hack a system message. But her voice no longer carried the same confidence. Around them, the airport had started changing. Fast. Pilots speaking urgently into headsets. Gate doors reopening. Passengers groaning as delayed notices flashed one after another across departure boards. Somewhere deeper in the terminal, a child began crying after hearing his family's flight had been halted. Yet all eyes kept drifting back toward the black woman standing quietly beside security like she did not belong in the chaos she caused. That was the strange part. Tatum Lockwood did not look powerful. No diamonds. No assistance. No black SUV waiting outside. Just a worn wool coat and calm eyes that had seen humiliation before. The senior security officer adjusted his tie awkwardly. "Ma'am, we are going to need identification." Brittany crossed her arms immediately. Exactly. Finally somebody is acting rational. Tatum reached slowly into her coat pocket. Every phone camera lifted higher. She pulled out a slim leather wallet. Old brown leather softened by decades of use. For 1 second, the officer caught sight of a faded photograph tucked behind the inner sleeve. A black pilot standing beside a tiny aircraft. Tuskegee Airman insignia on the jacket. Then Tatum closed the wallet before anyone else could see clearly. "Identification," Brittany repeated sharply. "Or we end this circus right now." Tatum handed over a driver's license without speaking. The officer looked down. His expression changed almost invisibly. Not recognition. More like confusion. "Lockwood," he murmured. Brittany rolled her eyes. "So what? Half of New York is named Lockwood." Maya Collins stood frozen near the gate entrance, still clutching the torn piece of ticket inside her sleeve. Her pulse hammered harder each second. Because she knew something Brittany did not. Founder line authorization was not public. New hires learned about it only once during executive emergency protocol training. A paper boarding pass reserved for direct family inspection access. Maya remembered the instructor's exact words now. "If you ever see one, you call headquarters immediately. You do not challenge the passenger publicly." Brittany had never paid attention during training videos. She used to laugh through them, scrolling her phone under the desk. The operations alarms echoed again. Louder this time. A nearby gate agent hurried over, whispering to security, "Operations says all East Coast Beacon departures are frozen until further notice." "By who?" the officer asked. "Nobody knows." Tatum answered quietly before anyone else could. "Somebody who still remembers what this airline was built for." Brittany scoffed immediately. "Oh please. You expect us to believe some random woman in a thrift store coat controls Beacon Air?" The words hit harder than she realized. Not because of the insult itself. Because for a split second, pain crossed Tatum's face before disappearing again. Tiny. Human. Gone almost instantly. Maya noticed. So did the older janitor from earlier. He had wandered closer now, carrying a mop bucket beside the terminal wall. His eyes stayed fixed on the stitching near Tatum's sleeve. "I know that coat," he whispered faintly to himself. Nobody heard him except a little girl sitting nearby with her mother. The child tugged gently at his pant leg. "She looks sad," the girl whispered. The janitor nodded slowly. Sometimes people who carry important things look ordinary on purpose. Brittany heard none of it. She was already turning toward the growing crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced loudly, "Beacon Air apologizes for this disruption. Security is handling the situation." Handling. Like Tatum was luggage. Or a threat. The businessman who filmed earlier uploaded the video before anyone could stop him. Phones buzzed instantly around the terminal. Crazy passenger shuts down flights. Woman claims to own airline. Security incident at Beacon Gate. Nobody posted the part where Brittany tore the ticket first. The world loves confidence when it comes from power. It calls it dangerous when it comes from somebody unexpected. Tatum's phone buzzed again. This time she looked at the screen. One name only. Daniel Reeves. Captain Reeves. She declined the call. Brittany smirked when she noticed. See? Even your friends are abandoning you now. Then Maya finally stepped forward. Voice shaking. Brittany, stop. Brittany turned sharply. Excuse me. Maya slowly pulled the torn corner of the boarding pass from her sleeve. The silver insignia caught the terminal lights again. The old beacon crest. Founder line. The senior security officer stared at it. His face tightened immediately. Where did you get that? Maya swallowed hard. She did not fake this. Silence hit the corridor again. Brittany's expression hardened instantly. Give me that. Maya hesitated. Wrong move. Brittany snatched the ticket fragment straight from her hand before the officer could react. Her eyes dropped to the insignia. And for the first time since this started, Brittany Hale stopped smiling. The silver insignia trembled slightly in Brittany Hale's fingers. Founder line. Old beacon crest. Her eyes scanned it once. Twice. Then her expression hardened again almost violently, like fear had only made her angrier. Cute prop, she said sharply. You think printing old logos makes this believable? Maya stared at her in disbelief. Brittany, that seal is internal access only. And you know that because you watched one training video? Brittany snapped. Please. Around them, the terminal noise had changed. Not normal airport noise anymore. Tense noise. Fast footsteps. Radios crackling. Gate agents whispering into headsets while trying not to panic passengers. On the operations monitor overhead, the red directive still flashed across the screen. Lockwood Priority Directive active. The senior security officer extended his hand slowly toward Brittany. Miss Hale. I need that ticket fragment. Brittany did not hand it over. Why? Because I said so. No, the answer came too fast. Too defensive. A silence settled over the corridor again. Tatum Lockwood stood near the terminal windows without moving. Runway lights reflected softly across her wool coat. Calm on the outside. But her thumb kept brushing the edge of her wedding band over and over. A habit. Small. Unconscious. The kind people develop after carrying grief too long. Maya looked toward Tatum carefully. Ma'am, when you called earlier, Brittany cut in immediately. Do not answer her. Tatum's eyes shifted toward the operations screen instead. Gate C12 is about to create a fuel backup if they keep holding taxi clearance. The security officer frowned. What? 30 seconds later, a radio exploded with static at the nearby desk. We need ground coordination at C12 now. Fuel queue is locking up the east lane. The officer's head turned slowly back toward Tatum. Brittany laughed nervously. Lucky guess. But nobody laughed with her this time. The older janitor near the wall stepped closer again, pushing his mop bucket quietly across the tile. He kept staring at the stitching on Tatum's sleeve. Miss Marion, he whispered under his breath. Tatum heard him. Her face softened for the first time all day. Just slightly. You knew my mother. The janitor blinked immediately like he regretted speaking. I used to work baggage loading here. Long time ago. Brittany stepped between them instantly. Great. Now we have random airport staff joining the performance. The janitor lowered his eyes again. Silence. Fear won. He backed away without another word. Sometimes truth only survives a few seconds before somebody powerful makes it dangerous again. Another operations alert flashed overhead. Executive access channel locked. The security officer grabbed his radio tighter now. Who exactly authorized this directive? Tatum answered calmly. Ask Operations Control, who still carries founder override clearance. Brittany scoffed loudly. You keep talking like an insider because you memorized company terms. No, Tatum said quietly. I talk like somebody who listens when people explain procedures. The sentence landed harder than shouting would have. Maya's breathing slowed slightly. Because she realized something terrifying. Tatum was not bluffing randomly. Every word was precise. Operational. Technical. Like she had lived inside the system for years. A little boy sitting beside the charging station tugged on his father's sleeve nearby. Dad, he whispered, why is everybody acting scared of her if she is lying? His father looked uncomfortable immediately. Stay out of it. Brittany turned sharply toward security again. Enough. Remove her from the terminal before this gets worse. The officer hesitated this time. Just long enough for everyone to notice. Then his radio buzzed again. A voice crackled through distorted static. Hold all action near Beacon Class Corridor. Captain Reeves is requesting direct contact with the passenger. Brittany's jaw tightened. Passenger, she repeated coldly. You still think she is a passenger? Nobody answered. Maya slowly looked back down at the torn ticket piece still trapped in Brittany's hand. Something else had become visible now beneath the silver insignia. Embossed lettering pressed faintly into the paper fibers. Not a boarding zone. Not a seat assignment. A name. Half hidden by the tear. Brittany noticed Maya staring and instinctively folded her fingers tighter over the fragment. Too late. The security officer had already seen part of it too. Lock. The rest disappeared beneath Brittany's thumb. Then Captain Daniel Reeves appeared at the far end of the corridor, moving fast enough to make airport staff flatten themselves against the walls. Captain Daniel Reeves moved through the terminal corridor fast enough to part the crowd without touching anyone. Pilots, gate agents, and security staff stepped aside instinctively the moment they saw him. His uniform was immaculate. Silver captain bars. Dark navy coat. Controlled urgency in every stride. Brittany Hale straightened immediately, relief flashing across her face. Finally. Somebody important. Captain Reeves, she said loudly before he even reached them, thank God. This woman disrupted terminal operations, issued fake executive commands, and threatened staff. Reeves did not answer her. His eyes locked first on the operations monitor overhead. Then on the torn ticket fragment clenched in Brittany's hand. Then finally on Tatum Lockwood standing silently near the windows. The captain slowed slightly. Just slightly. Like something inside him had shifted. Brittany noticed the hesitation and pushed harder immediately. Security needs authorization to remove her from Beacon property. Remove me? Tatum asked quietly. Brittany folded her arms. You shut down half the East Coast because you wanted attention. That is not what happened, Maya whispered. Brittany snapped toward her instantly. Do you want to lose your job too? Silence. Maya lowered her eyes immediately. Fear won again. The captain finally stepped closer. Miss Hale, he said carefully, where is the full boarding pass? Brittany lifted the torn fragment with fake confidence. Fake document. I confiscated it. You destroyed it, Maya corrected softly before she could stop herself. Brittany's jaw tightened. Excuse me. You tore it before verification protocol. The corridor went still again. A gate agent nearby slowly lowered his headset. Even the security officer shifted uncomfortably now. Reeves extended his hand calmly toward Brittany. Give me the fragment. Captain, with respect, this woman is manipulating everyone. The fragment. Brittany hesitated too long. then handed it over sharply. Reeves examined the silver insignia in silence. His thumb brushed across the faded embossing near the tear. Founder line authorization. His expression changed almost invisibly. Not shock. Recognition. Tatum watched him carefully. You still remember the protocol, she said quietly. Brittany jumped in immediately. Protocol? She keeps using insider language because she probably stalked company systems online. Reeves did not look away from the ticket. Founder line clearance has not existed publicly for over 20 years. Brittany blinked once. Hard. Then recovered quickly. Exactly. Which makes this even more suspicious. The captain lifted his eyes toward Tatum now. For one brief second, the entire corridor seemed to hold its breath waiting for something. Recognition. Explanation. Rescue. None came. Tatum only asked one calm question. How many planes are still holding at taxi? Reeves answered automatically before he could stop himself. 17. Brittany stared at him. Why are you answering her? Tatum looked toward the runway lights through the glass. Then Atlanta is about to experience a gate compression issue in under 6 minutes. Reeves frowned immediately. How would you know that? Before Tatum could answer, a radio burst alive at the security desk. Operations to Terminal 4. Atlanta corridor backing up. We need immediate rerouting approval. Nobody spoke. Brittany's face tightened again. The little boy near the charging station whispered loudly to his father, she keeps knowing things before the airport does. His father hushed him instantly. Brittany stepped forward aggressively now. Enough of this. She pointed directly at Tatum. She is causing panic on purpose. That is interference with airline operations. Miss Hale, Reeves said quietly, you are escalating this situation. Because nobody else will. Brittany turned toward the growing crowd around the corridor. Phones recording. Employees whispering. Delayed passengers growing angry by the minute. Look around, she snapped. Flights are grounded. People are stranded. Because one woman wanted to play executive. The crowd shifted slightly. Doubt spreading again. Easier to blame the visible person than question the system itself. Tatum remained still. Calm. But her fingers tightened once against the sleeve of her mother's coat. Reeves noticed the stitching again near the wrist. Hand repaired. Old. Familiar somehow. Then his eyes narrowed slightly. Where did you get that coat? Brittany immediately interrupted. Seriously? We are discussing fashion now. Reeves ignored her completely. Tatum answered softly. It belonged to somebody who believed Beacon should recognize dignity before wealth. Brittany laughed sharply. Oh my God. Listen to this. Then she turned toward security again. Either remove her now or I call Federal Airport Enforcement myself. The threat landed hard. 2 more officers had already appeared near the corridor entrance responding to the operation's disruption. Maya's face drained of color. Reeves looked down once more at the torn fragment in his hand. Then toward the operations monitor still flashing Lockwood Priority Directive active. Finally, he spoke into his radio. Operations Control. I need access to archived founder authorization records immediately. Static answered back first. Then a tense voice replied, Captain. Those records are locked executive level only. Brittany smiled instantly like she had won. Until the voice added one more sentence. And somebody inside headquarters just reopened them. The corridor fell quieter after the radio message. Not calm. Worse than calm. The kind of silence that spreads when people realize something important is happening and nobody understands it yet. Captain Daniel Reeves kept staring at the operations monitor overhead. Somebody inside headquarters reopened them. The sentence lingered in the air. Brittany Hale recovered first. Or somebody inside headquarters got tricked. She stepped closer to Reeves, lowering her voice just enough to sound reasonable. Captain, this woman already disrupted airport operations. We need to contain this before social media turns it into a circus. Social media already had. Phones kept buzzing around the corridor. Delayed flights. Viral clips. Angry passengers. One video title already spreading through the terminal read, "Fraud woman shuts down Beacon Terminal." Nobody uploaded the torn ticket. Nobody uploaded the begging. The world edits dignity out of the story faster than truth can catch up. Reeves looked toward Tatum again. Operations is reopening archived founder records because of your directive. Tatum answered quietly. Then they are following procedure. Brittany laughed sharply. There it is again. Procedure. Founder access. Executive language. She memorized company terms online and now everybody is panicking. Enough, the security officer muttered, though even he sounded uncertain now. Then the overhead monitor flickered once. Twice. A loading screen replaced the red alert. Executive archive retrieval in progress. Employees nearby stopped pretending not to watch. Maya Collins took a slow step forward. Captain, there is something else. Brittany immediately snapped toward her. Maya. Warning. Sharp. Dangerous. Maya hesitated anyway. Her hands trembled as she reached into her blazer pocket. Another piece of the boarding pass. Smaller than the first. She must have picked it up quietly from the marble floor after the ticket was torn apart. I found this near the scanner, she whispered. Reeves took it carefully. The fragment revealed more of the embossing hidden beneath the tear. Not just the old silver beacon crest this time. A line of text. Property of Beacon Founder Access Division. Brittany's face lost color for half a second before anger rushed back in harder. Anybody could fake embossed paper. Not this stock, Reeves said automatically. Then he stopped himself. Too late. Tatum noticed. So did Maya. You recognize it, Tatum said softly. Reeves did not answer. He turned the fragment over instead. On the back side, barely visible beneath the torn fibers, was a handwritten signature in faded blue ink. Isaiah Lockwood. The older janitor near the wall inhaled sharply. That signature, he whispered. I saw it once before. Brittany moved instantly. Give me that. Reeves did not hand it over. Miss Hale, step back. No. This is getting ridiculous. Her voice rose louder now because fear was beginning to leak through it. We are grounding flights over scraps of paper and made-up stories. Tatum's eyes stayed calm on the fragment in Reeves's hand. It was never about the paper. Then what was it about? Brittany shot back. Tatum looked around the corridor slowly. The security officers. The delayed passengers. The phones recording. The employees too afraid to speak. About whether somebody had to look expensive before you treated them like they mattered. Silence. Heavy this time. Even Brittany struggled to answer immediately. If you saw a ticket like that in your own hands, would you believe it was proof of something bigger, or would you still trust the person in uniform more? Reeves unfolded the fragment carefully again. His thumb brushed over the signature. Isaiah Lockwood. Founder of Beacon Air. One of the original Tuskegee airmen who built the airline after being denied service at segregated airports. Every pilot at Beacon learned the story during training. At least they were supposed to. Brittany saw the recognition building in the captain's face and panicked. This proves nothing. She pointed toward Tatum aggressively. Ask her for executive credentials. Ask her for headquarters clearance. She does not have any because she does not belong here. Reeves finally looked directly at Tatum. Do you? Tatum reached slowly into her coat pocket again. The entire corridor seemed to lean forward at once. But instead of a badge or executive card, she pulled out something much smaller. A faded black and white photograph. Edges worn soft from years of handling. It showed a young black pilot standing beside an old Beacon aircraft in 1948. Beside him stood a smiling woman in the same wool coat Tatum wore now. Reeves stared at the image. The janitor's hand began trembling against the mop handle. "Miss Marion," he whispered again. Brittany immediately stepped forward trying to snatch the photo away. Enough with the fake family props. But before she could reach it, the operations monitor overhead suddenly changed again. Archive match found. Then beneath it, one line slowly appeared across the screen. Authorization holder verified, lock. The rest of the name froze behind a blinking system lock. The blinking system lock froze the terminal monitor mid-name. Authorization holder verified, lock, then nothing. Just a flashing cursor trapped behind executive encryption. Groans rose immediately from delayed passengers nearby. Somebody cursed about missed connections. Somebody else shouted at a gate agent demanding refunds. The pressure inside Terminal 4 kept building while Tatum Lockwood stood motionless beneath the flashing screen like the storm had gathered around her on purpose. Brittany Hale saw the pause in the system and grabbed onto it instantly. "There." She pointed triumphantly at the monitor. "Even the system knows this is incomplete." Captain Reeves did not answer. His eyes remained fixed on the old photograph in Tatum's hand. Young black pilot. Beacon aircraft. Woman in the same wool coat. The captain's jaw tightened slowly. "I have seen this plane before," he murmured almost to himself. Tatum folded the photograph carefully before replying. "Most people have. They just never look closely." The sentence hit Reeves harder than she intended. Because suddenly he remembered standing inside Beacon headquarters years ago during cadet orientation. There had been an old framed photo in the founder hallway. Same aircraft. Same silver stripe along the fuselage. Same woman smiling beside the pilot. But the frame disappeared after renovations. Quietly. Like history itself had been packed into storage. Brittany stepped between them again aggressively. "Can we stop pretending this is some emotional documentary?" Her voice cracked slightly now beneath the irritation. "Flights are delayed because this woman triggered unauthorized directives." "Unauthorized directives do not override executive systems," Reeves answered without looking at her. Brittany froze. Tiny moment. Tiny crack. Then she pushed harder. "Fine. Then ask her why she is dressed like that if she is supposedly connected to Beacon." Tatum's hand tightened around the folded photograph. "Because this coat mattered to somebody I loved." The corridor quieted again. Even angry passengers nearby lowered their voices instinctively. Tatum looked down at the worn stitching near the wrist. Her thumb brushed over it softly. "My mother wore this coat the night she waited 14 hours for news after my father's crash investigation." Maya swallowed hard. Reeves looked up sharply. "Crash investigation. Beacon Flight 702, he asked before he could stop himself. Tatum nodded once. Pain crossed her face so quickly most people missed it. Not Brittany. She saw vulnerability and attacked immediately. "Oh my God. So this is revenge?" Heads turned again. The crowd loved that explanation. Simpler. Cleaner. Easier than admitting somebody powerful might have been humiliated because of prejudice. Brittany stepped closer. "You lost somebody years ago and now you shut down an airline to punish people?" "No," Tatum said quietly. "I shut down departures because your gate ignored verification procedure twice." Silence. Sharp silence. Reeves slowly looked toward Brittany. "Twice. Brittany spoke too quickly. She was disruptive from the start. Maya finally found enough courage to speak again. No. She asked us to scan the ticket. Brittany spun toward her instantly. Maya, if you keep interfering, I will personally make sure HR reviews your probation file. Maya's face went pale. The older janitor near the wall lowered his eyes again. Nobody moved. Fear spreading through the corridor like smoke. Tatum watched Maya carefully. Then spoke softly. You do not have to defend me. Maya looked stunned by the kindness. Most people with power demanded loyalty. This woman protected strangers even while being humiliated publicly. That frightened Brittany more than the system lock did. Reeves unfolded the torn ticket fragment again. His thumb paused near the faded signature. Isaiah Lockwood. Founder of Beacon Air. Then his eyes drifted toward the photograph in Tatum's hand once more. The pilot in the image wore the exact same founder wings Reeves had memorized from the old headquarters wall years ago. Where did you get this picture? He asked quietly. Tatum hesitated. First real hesitation anyone had seen from her all day. My mother carried it after my father died. Her voice lowered slightly. She said people forget sacrifices faster than they forget uniforms. The sentence settled deep into the corridor. Heavy. Human. One delayed passenger slowly lowered his phone instead of recording. Another employee near the security desk wiped his eyes quickly pretending something was in them. Brittany saw the crowd beginning to shift emotionally and panicked again. This changes nothing, she snapped loudly. A sad story does not prove authority. Then her eyes dropped suddenly to the photograph again. And for the first time, she noticed something in the corner of the image. A handwritten dedication beneath the pilot's signature. To Marion. Keep Beacon honest after I am gone. Isaiah Lockwood. Brittany's expression changed instantly. Because she finally understood one terrifying thing. The woman she humiliated was not protecting a fake story. She was protecting a family legacy. Before Brittany could react, a new voice crackled over the security radio. Captain Reeves, report immediately to Executive Conference Room B, bring the passenger and all recovered materials. Reeves slowly lifted his eyes toward Tatum. They want to see everything. Then the older janitor whispered shakily from the wall behind them. I remember that day. I remember that day. The old janitor's voice shook so badly the words almost disappeared beneath the airport noise. Every eye in the corridor turned toward him. Brittany Hale reacted first. No, she snapped immediately. We are not turning this into story time. The janitor gripped the mop handle tighter. The coat, he whispered. Her mother wore that coat the night Beacon Flight 702 came back without Captain Lockwood. Silence spread again. A few older employees near the gate exchanged uneasy looks. They remembered the crash. Or at least the rumors after it. Tatum lowered her eyes briefly. Pain crossed her face like something old reopening under fluorescent lights. Then it vanished again beneath control. Captain Reeves looked stunned now. You worked here during 702. Cargo loading, the janitor answered softly. Miss Marion sat in Terminal 2 all night waiting for answers nobody wanted to give her. Brittany stepped forward aggressively. Enough. Her voice cracked louder this time because the crowd was shifting emotionally away from her. This changes nothing. A tragic family story does not grant authority. Nobody said it did, Tatum answered quietly. Then why are we still standing here? Brittany fired back. You disrupted operations. You delayed flights. You created panic. Around them, delayed passengers groaned louder as more departure screens flipped red. Phones stayed raised. Videos still recording. But the mood had changed. Earlier the crowd watched Tatum like entertainment. Now some watched Brittany instead. That terrified her. So she grabbed control the only way she knew how. "Security," she announced sharply, "escort her out before headquarters decides to blame this entire mess on terminal staff." The senior officer hesitated again. "Too long." Brittany noticed immediately. "You heard me. Executive conference room B requested her presence," he replied carefully. Brittany forced a smile. "And they requested recovered materials too. Which means evidence review. Which means she is under investigation." The word investigation spread through the nearby crowd instantly. Easier for people to believe scandal than truth. A businessman near the wall muttered, "So she really is a fraud." Another passenger nodded. "Probably some former employee trying to extort the airline." Maya looked sick hearing it. Tatum remained calm, but her fingers pressed tighter against the folded photograph inside her coat pocket. That tiny movement was the only sign the words hurt. Brittany saw it and pressed harder. "You know what the real problem is," she said loudly enough for phones to capture every word. "People think confidence makes them important. It does not." Tatum met her eyes evenly. "Neither does cruelty." The corridor went still for half a second. Then Brittany laughed coldly. "Cute line. Maybe save it for your lawsuit." Reeves stepped between them before the tension climbed further. "Enough from both of you." But even he sounded uncertain now. Torn between protocol and instinct. Between uniform and history. An operations assistant hurried into the corridor clutching a tablet. "Captain Reeves, headquarters wants the security footage from Gate B-17 immediately." Brittany moved too fast. "I already submitted the footage." Maya's head snapped toward her. "No, you did not." Brittany ignored her completely. The passenger became aggressive after boarding denial. "It is all there." Tatum's eyes narrowed slightly for the first time all day. "Aggressive?" Brittany folded her arms triumphantly. "You threatened airline operations." "After you destroyed the verification document," Tatum answered quietly. Brittany pointed directly at her. "There. Hear that?" She admits she issued the threat. Several passengers nearby nodded immediately. The crowd was turning again. Public opinion moving wherever authority pushed it hardest. The operations assistant looked uncertain. "There is one issue." Brittany stiffened slightly. "What issue?" The assistant glanced at the tablet nervously. "The footage from the exact moment the boarding pass was torn appears corrupted." Maya whispered under her breath, "Of course it does." Brittany spun toward her. "Careful." Fear shut Maya silent again. False victory settled over the corridor like smoke. Brittany could feel control returning. The crowd drifting back toward her side. Security standing closer to Tatum now. Even Reeves looked trapped inside procedure again. Brittany smiled for the first time in minutes. "Good. Then we are done here." She turned toward Tatum with cold satisfaction. "You will come to conference room B, surrender every item connected to this incident, and answer for disrupting beacon operations." Tatum nodded once. No resistance. Somehow that calmness unsettled Reeves more than anger would have. As security stepped closer, the folded photograph slipped slightly from Tatum's coat pocket. Just enough for one corner to show beneath the terminal lights. Reeves saw it instantly. Not the pilot this time. Something handwritten on the back. A second line beneath Isaiah Lockwood's signature. "If Beacon ever forgets who it belongs to, remind them." Reeves looked up sharply toward Tatum just as Brittany ordered security, "Take the photo too." "Take the photo too." Brittany Hale's voice cracked through the corridor like a final verdict. Two security officers stepped toward Tatum immediately. Around them, phones lifted higher. Passengers whispered harder now. Not curious anymore. Certain. The crowd had decided somebody needed to be blamed for the chaos flooding the airport screens. And the quiet black woman in the old wool coat was easier to blame than the system itself. Tatum slowly folded the photograph once more before handing it to Captain Reeves herself. Careful. Respectful. Like it mattered more than anything else she carried. Please do not bend it, she said softly. Reeves took it without speaking. Brittany laughed under her breath. Amazing. You shut down an airline and your biggest concern is a photograph. Some things survive longer than reputations, Tatum answered quietly. Brittany rolled her eyes dramatically toward the crowd. There she goes again. Little speeches. Meanwhile, thousands of passengers are stranded because she wanted attention. A few people nodded immediately. A businessman near the wall muttered, "Lock her up already." Another passenger whispered, "This is why airports need stricter security." Maya flinched hearing it. Tatum remained still beside the terminal windows while operations alarms echoed deeper through the building. Delayed. 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 The giant departure board behind them glowed red across half the East Coast. Brittany stepped forward again, sensing the crowd turning back toward her side. "Here is what is going to happen," she announced sharply. "You will surrender every document connected to this stunt. You will answer questions from headquarters. And after that, you will be escorted off Beacon property permanently." "Miss Hale," Reeves warned quietly. "No," Brittany's voice rose louder. "I am done entertaining this." She pointed directly at Tatum. "You do not belong here." Silence hit harder than shouting. Because nobody defended her. Not the passengers. Not security. Not even Reeves yet. The airport had become a courtroom without rules, and Brittany wore the uniform people trusted. Tatum lowered her eyes for one brief second. Not defeat. Pain. Old pain. The kind that comes from hearing the same sentence in different rooms your entire life. "You do not belong here." Maya took one nervous step forward. "Captain, maybe we should wait for headquarters verification before." "Enough." Brittany spun toward her instantly. "You are probationary staff. One more interruption and you are finished at this airline." Maya froze silent. Tears filled her eyes immediately, but she swallowed them back down. Tatum noticed. "Do not risk your future for me," she said gently. Brittany smirked triumphantly. "At least somebody here understands consequences." Reeves unfolded the photograph carefully again while the argument continued around him. His eyes drifted over the old Beacon aircraft. Then toward the handwritten line on the back. "Keep Beacon honest after I am gone. Isaiah Lockwood." Something about the handwriting bothered him. Familiar. Personal. Like he had seen it somewhere far beyond a training archive. Then his radio crackled sharply again. "Captain Reeves, Executive Conference Room B is prepared. Security clearance approved for recovered materials only." Brittany smiled instantly. "Recovered materials only," she repeated loudly. "Meaning she does not walk in there with evidence." She reached directly toward Tatum's coat pocket again. "Hand over everything else." Tatum stepped back once. Calm. Controlled. "No," the single word changed the air. Brittany stared at her. "Excuse me. The photograph is enough for verification." "You do not decide what is enough." Brittany motioned toward security immediately. "Search her belongings." One officer hesitated visibly. "Ma'am, without formal authorization, I am senior cabin authority at this gate." Brittany snapped. "Do your job." The crowd leaned in closer now. Watching. Recording. Waiting for the woman in the old coat to finally break. Tatum's hand trembled once near her sleeve. Then stopped. "If you search me without executive review," she said quietly, "you violate Founder Protection Protocol." Reeves looked up sharply. Brittany laughed instantly. "More fake rules." "No," Reeves said slowly. That protocol exists. Silence exploded across the corridor. Brittany turned toward him in disbelief. You cannot seriously still think, I said it exists. Tiny hope flickered through the crowd again. Then Brittany crushed it immediately. Fine. Her smile returned colder than before. Then we follow full executive investigation procedure. She pointed directly toward the far glass hallway leading deeper into restricted airport offices. Escort her to conference room B, strip her access. Confiscate every personal item pending review. Security stepped closer around Tatum now. Passengers moved aside as she was guided through the terminal like a criminal under silent judgment. Nobody noticed the older janitor watching from the wall with trembling eyes. Nobody except Reeves. And just before Tatum disappeared into the restricted hallway, something slipped quietly from inside her coat onto the polished floor behind her. A small black card. Old. Matte finish. Silver beacon crest pressed into the center. Reeves bent slowly to pick it up. Then his face changed completely. Captain Reeves stared down at the black card in his hand like it had suddenly become dangerous. Matte black surface. Silver beacon crest pressed into the center. No barcode. No printed number. Just one line embossed beneath the logo. Founder access. The noise in the terminal seemed to fade around him. Brittany Hale noticed the change in his face immediately. What is that? Reeves did not answer. Tatum stood motionless between the security officers while passengers continued recording from behind the barriers. Red delay warning still flashed across every departure screen. But now fewer people were yelling. More were watching. Waiting. Brittany stepped closer again, trying to reclaim control. Captain, do not tell me you are buying into this. Reeves slowly turned the card over. On the back side sat a tiny silver strip almost invisible beneath the lights. Old executive authentication hardware. Not used in public beacon systems for years. Maya inhaled sharply. Oh my God. Brittany snapped toward her instantly. Stop reacting like she is royalty. Tatum lowered her eyes briefly at the word royalty. Pain flickered across her face again. Not pride. Grief. Like the card reminded her of somebody gone. Reeves looked toward her carefully. Where did you get this? My father carried it until the day he died, Tatum answered quietly. The corridor fell still. Even the angry passengers nearby stopped talking for a moment. One security officer shifted uneasily. Captain, if that is authentic, Brittany cut across immediately. It is not authentic. Her voice came too fast now. Too loud. Cracking around the edges. Anybody can manufacture old company memorabilia. Reeves finally looked directly at her. Not with inactive executive encryption strips. Silence. Phones slowly lowered around the corridor. The crowd was changing again. Not convinced yet. But uncertain now. Brittany sensed it too. That terrified her more than the card itself. So she moved aggressively toward the nearest operations console. Fine, she snapped. Then verify it publicly and prove this woman is lying. Maya's eyes widened. Brittany, do it. Reeves hesitated only a second before walking toward the console with the card. Employees parted for him immediately. Security tightened around Tatum while passengers leaned closer trying to see the monitor. Brittany folded her arms confidently again for the cameras. This ends now. Reeves slid the black card slowly across the old emergency reader built into the operations desk. Nothing happened at first. Brittany smirked instantly. Exactly. Then the screen flickered once. Hard. Every overhead operations monitor in the terminal flashed simultaneously. Red warning lights disappeared. Replaced by a black loading screen carrying the original beacon crest from decades ago. Older employees near the gate froze immediately. They had not seen that symbol displayed publicly in years. The system tone that followed was different too. Lower. Older. Almost ceremonial. Maya whispered under her breath, "Founder channel." Brittany turned pale for half a second before forcing another laugh. A screensaver does not prove ownership. Tatum remained silent near the windows. Calm. Watching the monitors glow across the terminal walls. Reeves stared at the console as lines of encrypted code rolled upward faster and faster. Then one message appeared across the center screen. Legacy clearance request detected. Verify holder identity. The room changed. Truly changed. People stopped whispering. Stopped filming. Even the delayed passengers looked confused now instead of angry. Because systems do not ask permission from frauds. Brittany felt control slipping and lunged for it immediately. Turn it off. Nobody moved. I said turn it off. Reeves did not take his eyes off the screen. I cannot. Why not? Because the founder channel overrides local authority. The sentence landed like a shockwave through the corridor. A businessman near the back slowly lowered his phone completely. The older janitor gripped his mop handle so tightly his knuckles turned white. Tatum looked toward him gently. You should sit down, Mr. Harris. Brittany's head snapped toward the janitor. You know her. Mr. Harris swallowed hard. I knew her mother. Silence again. Deep now. Dangerous. If you were standing in that terminal, who do you think would feel fear first when the truth finally surfaced? Then the monitor flickered one more time. A new message began loading beneath the founder crest. Authorization holder, Tatum L. Brittany moved instantly toward the console. No, she slammed her hand against the emergency shutdown switch beside the monitor. The screens went black across the terminal. Gasps broke out immediately. There, Brittany breathed heavily. Enough. Nobody answered her this time. Because in the darkness of the dead monitors, one thing still glowed faintly beneath the operations desk. The black founder access card. And for the first time since this began, Captain Reeves looked at Tatum not like a suspect, but like somebody he should have recognized hours ago. Then a calm voice echoed from the far end of the corridor. Before anybody touches that card again, I suggest you watch the security footage. Before anybody touches that card again, I suggest you watch the security footage. The voice came from the far end of the corridor. Calm. Female. Precise. Every head turned at once. A woman in a dark executive suit stepped through the crowd holding a secured operations tablet against her chest. Beacon Air Chief Legal Officer Vanessa Cole. The atmosphere changed instantly. Employees straightened. Security officers stepped aside. Even Brittany Hale's confidence flickered. Vanessa, Captain Reeves breathed quietly. Vanessa did not look at Brittany first. She looked directly at Tatum. Long enough for everyone to notice. Then she nodded once. Respectfully. The backup server restored 12 seconds of deleted footage. Brittany's face drained white. Deleted? Silence exploded through the corridor. Passengers lowered their phones slowly now instead of raising them. Reeves stepped toward Vanessa immediately. Show us. Brittany recovered fast. Too fast. This proves nothing. Corrupted footage can, Miss Hale, Vanessa cut in sharply, do not interrupt me again. That landed harder than shouting. The entire terminal seemed to lean inward as Vanessa connected the tablet to the operations monitor. One by one, the dark screens across Terminal 4 came back to life. Grainy security footage flickered onto them. Gate B-17. Beacon class entrance. Tatum standing quietly in her wool coat holding the paper boarding pass. Brittany's voice echoed across the terminal speakers from the recording. Ask nicely. Beg me to board you. A collective murmur rolled through the crowd. Brittany immediately pointed at the screen. Context matters. Vanessa ignored her. The footage continued. Tatum calmly requesting verification. Maya attempting to intervene. Then the moment. Brittany grabbing the boarding pass and tearing it into 4 pieces while passengers gasped around her. Silence hit the terminal so hard even the overhead announcements seemed distant. One passenger near the wall slowly whispered, "She destroyed the ticket." Another lowered his phone completely. Reeves stared at the screen without blinking. "You reported the passenger became aggressive first," he said quietly. Brittany swallowed hard. She threatened operations." Vanessa tapped the tablet once more. Another file opened beside the footage. Founder Access Verification Record. The black founder card Reeves recovered moments earlier appeared scanned across the screen. Encryption authentic. Legacy executive clearance confirmed. The operations monitor brightened again. Authorization holder verified, Tatum Lockwood. This time the full name appeared. No system lock. No interruption. Just the truth hanging in giant white letters above the terminal floor. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. A flight attendant near the escalator covered her mouth with both hands. One of the security officers took a slow step backward away from Tatum instinctively. Maya's eyes filled with tears. Brittany stared at the monitor like her body no longer understood gravity. "No," she whispered. Vanessa finally turned toward the crowd. "Tatum Lockwood is the current chairwoman of Beacon Air." Shock rippled physically through the corridor. Phones dropped lower. A businessman who mocked her earlier looked down at the floor unable to meet her eyes. The little boy near the charging station whispered, "I told you she was important." His father said nothing this time. Reeves straightened immediately and saluted Tatum without hesitation. "Ma'am." The single word changed everything. Brittany stumbled backward one step. "That is impossible." "No," Tatum said quietly. What was impossible was believing a black woman in an old coat belonged in first class. Nobody breathed. Vanessa stepped beside the monitor again. "There is more." Another file appeared on screen. Founder Protocol Violation Report. Brittany Hale. Gate B17. Manual deletion attempt detected. Reeves looked sharply toward Brittany. "You tried to erase the footage." "I panicked," Brittany whispered. "I did not know who she was." Tatum's eyes never left her. "You knew enough to humiliate me before you knew my name." That hit harder than any threat could have. Brittany looked around desperately now. The crowd that supported her minutes ago stood silent. Distant. Ashamed. Nobody wanted to stand beside power once it became ugly. Vanessa opened one final archive on the monitor. An old black and white photograph filled the screens across the terminal. Isaiah Lockwood beside the first Beacon aircraft in 1948. Next to him stood Marion Lockwood wearing the same wool coat Tatum wore now. Beneath the image glowed the original Beacon motto. Dignity above altitude. Mr. Harris the janitor began quietly crying against the wall. "Your mother sat in this terminal after Flight 702, he whispered shakily. "And still she told us to treat every passenger with dignity." Tatum lowered her eyes briefly. Pain and pride crossing her face together. Reeves turned slowly toward Brittany. "Do you understand what you have done?" Brittany opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Then Vanessa looked toward the security officers and asked the question that made the entire corridor freeze completely. Who authorized Miss Hale to override Founder Protection Protocol in the first place? The question hung in the terminal like a blade. Who authorized Miss Hale to override Founder Protection Protocol in the first place? Nobody answered. Not Brittany. Not security. Not the employees standing frozen beside the dead monitors. The silence itself became the answer. Brittany's face had lost all color now. Her hands trembled slightly against the edge of the operations desk. I did not know who she was, she whispered weakly. Vanessa Cole's expression hardened instantly. That is exactly the problem. The words cut deeper than shouting. Around them, passengers slowly lowered their phones one by one. Earlier those same people had watched Tatum like entertainment. Now many could not even look at her directly. Captain Reeves stepped forward and carefully placed the black Founder access card back into Tatum's hand. Respectfully. With both hands. Like returning something sacred. This belongs to you, Chairwoman Lockwood. The title echoed through the corridor. Chairwoman. Not suspect. Not fraud. Not disruption. Brittany closed her eyes briefly, like hearing it aloud finally shattered whatever denial remained. Vanessa turned toward the security officers. Effective immediately, Brittany Hale is suspended from all Beacon Air duties pending executive review. Brittany's head snapped upward. You cannot do this publicly. You humiliated a passenger publicly, Vanessa replied coldly. You deleted security footage. You violated Founder Protection Protocol. And you attempted unauthorized evidence suppression. Each sentence hit harder than the last. The crowd stayed completely silent now. One of the security officers stepped toward Brittany carefully. Ma'am, we need your badge. Brittany stared at him in disbelief. You are serious? Nobody answered. Her hands shook harder as she slowly unclipped the Beacon badge from her uniform jacket. The tiny metallic click echoed louder than it should have. A flight attendant near the escalator quietly looked away, unable to watch. Brittany held the badge 1 second too long before finally placing it into the officer's hand. Status reversal. Instant. Brutal. Human. Tatum watched quietly. No smile. No satisfaction. Just sadness. Maya Collins stepped forward slowly. Captain, the passengers from Gate B-17 are asking if boarding will resume. Reeves looked toward Tatum before answering. She noticed immediately. The delays can end, she said softly. Safety protocols have been restored. Vanessa glanced at her carefully. After everything that happened here. You still want flights resumed? Tatum looked around the terminal. Delayed families. Crying children. Exhausted workers. Passengers should not suffer because dignity failed today. The sentence spread through the corridor like warmth after cold rain. Even Brittany looked shaken hearing it. Mr. Harris the janitor wiped his eyes quietly near the wall. Your mother used to say the same thing, he whispered. Tatum's face softened. Reeves straightened beside her. Beacon forgot what it was built for. Then remember, Tatum answered. Vanessa nodded slowly. Then turned back toward the crowd. Effective immediately, all Beacon executive staff will undergo renewed Founder Protocol training. Gate profiling investigations will begin tonight. And every employee involved in suppressing evidence will be reviewed. Employees nearby lowered their eyes immediately. The old photograph still glowed across the operations monitor behind them. Isaiah Lockwood beside Marion in the wool coat. Dignity above altitude beneath them both. One passenger stepped forward awkwardly. The same businessman who mocked Tatum earlier. Ma'am. I am sorry. Others followed quietly after him. Not dramatic apologies. Human ones. Embarrassed. Real. Tatum acknowledged them with a small nod but did not make them kneel for forgiveness. That mattered. Brittany stood alone now beside the operations desk while employees avoided looking at her. I was trying to protect the airline, she whispered weakly. Tatum finally turned toward her fully for the first time since the reveal. No, she said calmly. You were protecting the version of the airline that only respected people who looked expensive. Brittany's eyes filled instantly. No argument left. No crowd left to support her. Vanessa handed the restored security footage tablet to legal staff approaching from the executive hallway. "Archive everything," she ordered. "Nothing gets deleted again." Reeves then reached carefully into his jacket pocket and unfolded the old photograph one final time before returning it to Tatum. This time he noticed the repaired stitching on Marion's sleeve and the image matched the stitching on Tatum's coat perfectly. Generations carrying the same wound. The same dignity. Tatum accepted the photo quietly and smoothed one corner with her thumb. Then a small voice broke the silence near the charging station. The little boy from earlier stepped forward holding his mother's hand tightly. "Ma'am," he asked softly, "are you the boss of the airplanes?" For the first time all day, Tatum smiled. Small. Tired. Real. But before she could answer, Vanessa gently touched her arm. "The board is waiting upstairs," she said quietly. "And there is someone else asking to see you." Tatum frowned slightly. "Who?" Vanessa glanced toward the private executive elevators at the far end of the terminal. "Eleanor Hale. Brittany's grandmother." The executive elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Tatum Lockwood stepped inside beside Vanessa Cole while the noise of Terminal 4 slowly faded behind them. For the first time all day, nobody blocked her path. Nobody questioned her right to stand there. Security officers lowered their eyes respectfully as the doors closed. Down below, the giant operations monitors across Beacon Air terminals had already changed. Delayed flights were clearing one by one. But something else had changed too. At Gate B-17, passengers now watched every employee differently. Quieter. More carefully. The elevator opened onto the executive floor overlooking the runways. Floor-to-ceiling glass. Evening light pouring gold across polished wood and old aviation photographs. Eleanor Hale stood waiting near the conference room windows. Brittany's grandmother looked small beside the giant skyline beyond her. White gloves folded carefully in her hands. The moment she saw the wool coat, her eyes filled with tears. "Marion," she whispered automatically before catching herself. Tatum stopped a few feet away. Neither woman spoke for several seconds. Some griefs recognize each other without introductions. Eleanor finally stepped closer slowly. "I repaired that sleeve myself," she said softly, touching the stitched cuff with trembling fingers. "Your mother ripped it helping me carry luggage after my arthritis got bad. She never let anybody see me struggling." Tatum looked down at the stitching. Then back at Eleanor. She kept everybody's dignity safe except her own. Eleanor's tears fell harder now. "No," she whispered. She carried it with grace. Behind them, Vanessa quietly placed the old photograph and the black founder access card onto the conference table beneath the beacon crest. The symbols that began the humiliation now sat openly where everybody could see them. Not evidence anymore. Legacy. Healing does not always begin with forgiveness. Sometimes it begins with finally being seen correctly. Downstairs in the terminal, Maya Collins stood nervously beside Gate B-17 while passengers slowly reboarded. A frightened elderly woman approached the first-class scanner holding a worn paper ticket with shaking hands. For one painful second Maya remembered Brittany's voice echoing through the lounge. "People like you do not belong here." Then Maya smiled gently instead. "Welcome aboard, ma'am." The elderly woman looked stunned by the kindness. Nearby, the little boy from earlier tugged his father's sleeve again. "That is how you are supposed to talk to people," he whispered proudly. His father nodded quietly this time. No argument left. Back upstairs, Captain Reeves entered the conference room carrying a small velvet display box. He stopped in front of Tatum respectfully. This was recovered from the Founder archive after the system reopened. Tatum opened the box slowly. Inside rested Isaiah Lockwood's original Beacon Founder wings. Silver. Worn smooth with age. Her breath caught softly. Reeves spoke carefully. Your grandfather's training motto is being restored across all Beacon terminals tonight. Vanessa nodded beside him. And the board unanimously approved the Lockwood Dignity Initiative. Tatum looked up slightly. Vanessa smiled faintly for the first time all day. Mandatory anti-profiling training. Emergency dignity protocol reviews. Anonymous passenger advocacy access. Every employee learns why Beacon was built in the first place. Tatum closed the velvet box gently around the founder wings. Not triumph. Responsibility. Eleanor stepped closer one final time. Brittany asked me why you wore this coat today, she whispered. I told her some people wear wealth to feel important. Others wear memory so they never forget who they are. Silence settled warmly through the room. Not the cold silence of humiliation anymore. Something softer. Restored. Tatum finally looked out through the giant runway windows where Beacon planes were beginning to move again beneath the evening lights. One after another. Families heading home. Workers finishing shifts. Strangers trusting the sky. She slipped the black founder card carefully back into her coat pocket beside the old photograph. Then she turned toward Vanessa. Keep Maya Collins, she said quietly. People who speak up while they are afraid are rare. Vanessa nodded immediately. Already done. Down below, a cleaning worker pushing a supply cart accidentally wandered toward the Beacon class entrance. Instinctively, he started apologizing and backing away. But this time the gate agent stepped aside with a respectful smile. You are fine, sir. Take your time. The worker blinked in surprise before continuing through the gate with his head a little higher than before. Tatum watched the moment from the executive windows above. Then she smiled softly to herself. Outside, the runway lights stretched endlessly into the darkening sky while the old wool coat rested across her shoulders exactly where it belonged. And somewhere deep inside Beacon Air, dignity had finally been allowed to board first.